Hello, Johnny from Eurogamer here, and today I want to talk very carefully about a game called Virginia. See, Virginia is really stylish and very compelling. It's a game that borrows very heavily from 30 Flights of Loving, so a lot of what I say in this video will also be applicable to that game. Virginia is also rather tricky to talk about without spoiling, which is important to avoid doing because everyone should get the chance to come at this game fresh. So with that in mind, I promise I've made every effort to avoid story spoilers in this video. Not that it was too hard, because what I want to talk to you about is the way in which Virginia handles the bits between the action. Those intermediary portions between areas of high tension or intrigue, because if there's one thing Virginia does well, it's editing. I was talking about editing with Eurogamer staffer Christian Donlan recently, and he referred to it as the meaningful part of cinema, which I think is a brilliant way of putting it. Let's cut to some different games while we talk about this. Video games so frequently give you a protracted experience full of sequences in which we're doing nothing but getting from point A to point B so we can tackle the next big thing. Just think about open world games. A lot of time is spent heading over to the next point of the map, far more even than is spent advancing the story. And that's fine, of course. Open world games are fantastic fun because they let you potter around. But what about other games for which that isn't the main appeal? Think about first-person shooters or action games. All those corridors you've gone down, killing a few sparsely placed enemies as you travel toward the next set piece. They exist because games have a real fixation with continuity, of seeing every second of the journey from one event to the next, a fixation cinema simply doesn't have. And because developers are so reticent to take control out of players' hands, we've become used to legwork. We're accustomed to travelling long distances for the sake of doing it, even when it becomes total drudgery. Now granted, Virginia isn't an open world game, or an action game, or a first-person shooter, but it also isn't afraid of trimming the fat and chivying things along a bit. To explain what I mean, let's watch this clip. See, that's what I love about Virginia. It trusts that you're smart enough to understand these snippets of building you're traversing are all parts of one journey, without asking you to walk the whole thing yourself as an exercise in continuity. Here's another example as you leave your home on the first day of the game. There you go, from a hallway outside an apartment straight to the inside of a car. You can probably see from the movement of the camera there that I was a bit surprised, but I was also really impressed. Because I knew where I was and why without having to physically connect the dots myself. Virginia does this a lot, zipping you between locations, often with big gaps of time in between, as denoted by changes in lighting. But crucially, you never lose the sense of continuity, and the reason for that is you never really lose control of the character. In our first example, you keep walking. Your hands in the real world are still doing what they were a second ago, but you're further on in the journey. You know you're still going. Now, moving from the corridor to the car, you can't physically move your character about, granted, but you can still look around. Virginia keeps you in control of the character, yes, but it's already made the decision you don't need to see the whole corridor or the entire staircase. It gives you glimpses of these things, but only for as long as it takes you to grasp that it's part of the journey. In other words, it shows you pieces of your journey for as long as they retain meaning. It's a simple conceit, but it leads to a more streamlined, curated whole, and as such, it's a lot more engaging and a lot more cinematic than countless other video games. If you're a fan of the Cornetto trilogy, you can think of it as the video game equivalent of Edgar Wright's Quick Cuts. It's a bold design decision, and it's a really good one. Just because games development allows you to build the whole journey from A to B, it doesn't mean you have to. Let's not forget, open world games themselves almost always include fast travel. Even when their unique selling point is this sense of scale and freedom, they can admit the need for editing. So with that in mind, hats off to Virginia for getting stuck in and chopping things down a bit. Speaking of which, actually, I've probably gone on for long enough now, so I will let you go. Hopefully you found this video on Virginia interesting. If you haven't played it and you are tempted, I would really urge you to. It's really, really good. Anyway, here are some more videos you could watch if you fancied it, but if you don't feel like it, no bother. Thanks for watching.